I'm here with magician, entrepreneur, Blaise Serra in the house. And
Hi,
man,
everybody.
this guy is awesome. We actually met probably about 2 years ago at Fivel's
Yeah,
backyard
it's
bash.
crazy. It was 2 years ago. I can't believe that.
Yeah, and I was hosting the event. And at first, you see magicians a lot, but this one was different. He was able to connect well with the audience, and so he did the first trick on me, and I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "How did he just read my mind?" So before we get to that, I wanted to know, where did your journey start as wanting to be a magician?
Yeah. Well, oh yeah. First off, thank you so much for having me on this. We've been talking about this for a while, so I'm
No.
excited that we're finally getting a chance to do it, even though we're separated. But with magic, it started. It started because I was already I loved performing before that, and so with magic, I kind of started twice. I learned a few tricks when I was maybe 10. I was in like fifth grade, and I got into it. But then I started focusing more on guitar, and I was really interested in guitar and music, and I was in like one band with some friends throughout middle school, and we would do talent shows or whatever. And so I was really interested in performing already. And then my freshman year of high school is when I kind of stumbled back upon magic, because we were on a field trip and we were all on a bus heading to, I think it was a chorus like competition or something. It was some kind of singing competition. And so we were all on this trip, and somebody had a deck of cards on the bus. And so I asked them, "Hey, could I see that? I just want to see if I remember any of the tricks." And then it was my freshman year. I just started performing for everybody on the bus. And I didn't even really remember the full tricks that I had learned when I was little. I just remembered like the moves and the techniques and a little bits and pieces. And I started piecing together routines and making them up on the spot. And then the moment that happened, I was like, oh, I need to really, I want to double down on this and keep, trying to pursue this, because it was so much fun making it up on the spot. And so I was like, what would happen if I really spent time trying to create something and then come up with it in my bedroom, and the next day come into school and share it with my friends. So it started off as just something to share with my friends, and I never thought that it would be a career. I was like super like laser focused on academics at that time. And then doing like music and musical theater and stuff in school. And then when I started doing the magic, there was one day during the summer that we were at the beach, and I just started walking around to everybody on the beach, just seeing, because I was curious, like, are my friends just being nice because they know me, and are the tricks actually good that I was making up? And so then I started just trying to share what I was coming up with random people, and I was walking around to people at the beach. And then nighttime rolls around, we're at this restaurant, and I walk up to these people at the bar, and then those two people, this was in July, they wanted me to ask me if I had a business card, and I didn't have any business cards because I was just doing it for fun. So I wrote down my number on a playing card, and they kept that, and they called me months later for a Christmas party in December, and that was my first ever gig. And that gig was for hundreds of people, because they had this big company and they had a house party with like 400 people at it. And that was Dave Fontaine and Sarah Fontaine. And I've tried to every year go back to that same house party, because they do it every year. I missed it this past one because we were doing a show in Vegas, but I want to try and make it as much as I can, because I'm really grateful for them like kicking it off and believing in me. Because then I started, a couple people from that party booked me for a gig, and then it just kind of continued after that. And then I was like, I can't see myself behind a desk anymore. I really want to do this. And so that's kind of how I got started with wanting to pursue magic.
Well, it really seems like you were able to discover your gift early on. And we all have gifts. I believe that we're all blessed with some
Definitely.
kind of gift. Whoever is watching, you got a gift. You have something inside of you. But
Absolutely.
what struck me from hearing this conversation so far is that you had some kind of a focus. Maybe it came from academics, maybe it came from something, but it was something like you took what you had and you went out and you started sharing your gift with others. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where did that confidence come from? Because a lot of people, we have like a talent, and we're like, I'm afraid, because I'm afraid of what they'll think of me, or you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And it's weird because I think about myself back then and I think about myself now, And I feel like it was because of magic that I gained so much more confidence and from performing. So it's like, how I'm trying to think back, how did I have that confidence back then to try and do it for random people? And I think that it was just because I felt comfortable trying stuff with my friends. And so when I did it for my friends, and if they were responding good, I felt comfortable being able to mess up in front of them and try stuff. So I had already been working on it and trying to get make the ideas that I was coming up with good enough to perform, by testing it from people that I trusted that were in school. And from doing it for them, that gave me a little bit of a confidence boost to say, I want to try this for random people, and never expecting that I would get booked for a gig or that I would do it for a job. So I think that the thing is that, I think that's a part of, I don't know, like the creative process or whatever, is that, ideas, and that's something that I've continually been trying to learn throughout this whole process, is that like ideas don't really mean anything unless you execute on them, and unless that you share them with people. So I guess throughout this whole magic journey, I've had kind of two goals with it, which is make my art the best that it can be, and then share it with as many people as possible, because then you are able to, you learn from actually performing it. And there have been times where I've tried to hold on to an idea for so long because I didn't think it was ready to share. And by holding on to it for so long, sometimes that was a good thing because I finally got it to the point where it was ready. But many times you hold on to an idea so long, afraid of how people are going to judge it. And then by the time you finally do perform it, it doesn't get the exact reaction that you wanted or expected. So it's kind of more important to try stuff and share it with people and get their feedback. That way you're able to have more context for how you should go in the future, and it might mean that that idea that you thought was like the best thing that you thought you were going to spend years working on ended up not being the path that you wanted to go down. And you kind of only get that context from real world experience. It's like the difference between, I guess, like intelligence and wisdom is that like you might have this great idea in your head, but then it's only through the experience that you actually gain the wisdom to know if it really was a good idea, because it's all about entertainment in the end, and like the magic, for me, in a magician's perspective, the magic exists in the audience member's mind, So if my audience member isn't thinking it's that magical, then maybe that idea that I thought was so precious wasn't actually good enough, So it makes me grow and need to, raise my standard.
Right. So even through middle school, high school, were you always this charismatic? Were you always this person that's outgoing and just able to, be who you truly are? Or did this, like you said, it came with time, it came with just magic, it just
I guess it was a bit of always there, but I was always interested in just doing stuff that other people weren't doing, like trying to do something different and being able to share with someone an idea that I had. So I remember when I was in third grade, I just like got this idea, and I was talking with my dad, and that song "We Will Rock You," right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the first one. Was I heard the song "We Will Rock You," and then I remember saying "We will teach you, we will teach you," and then I just like made a whole parody song of that about the school and about like the principal and all the teachers that I had or whatever. And then the next day went into the office in the school and just asked if I could sing it over the intercom. And so like same as a parody song for everybody in third grade, over the speaker, the loudspeaker in school when they were doing like the announcements. And so I think that I've always kind of wanted to share ideas with people, but I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily like the most confident person in other aspects of life. I think that there's like a lot of, you can have confidence in different things, and I think if I was doing something that I thought was unique, then I knew that I was able to share something that I thought I was good at. So it's easier, I think, to share something that you believe you're good at or that makes you unique than it is to share something and be judged by people that everybody does. Does that like make sense? Like I would be a lot less comfortable in gym class if everybody's like practicing layups and they made me do a layup in front of the whole gym class. Definitely. than to do something that like is a trick I came up with that nobody else is doing. So I guess like double down on what makes you unique makes then you're more confident. At least in my case, I was more confident with things that were my idea.
No. Most definitely in school growing up, man. I kind of had it, not to say really rough, but I was really hyper ADHD. I was placed in like special ed classes actually until the
Really?
grade. But the same kind of thing. I wasn't necessarily a person that was interested in basketball. A lot of people were. That was the cool thing. But skateboarding caught my eye. And as I began to focus on that, and I guess it did something to me where I felt confident, because before I didn't really feel confident about myself. I wasn't the best in school, but using my gift with skateboarding made me that way. So I do relate to you. Once you found that gifting of yours of magic, it lit you up. And
Yeah, and it's like it's a lot more. I like, you probably felt a lot more confident being like one of the 5 skateboarders in your school or whatever. I don't know how many there were, but like I bet there were a lot more basketball players that, and like being ranked against like so many. Like I would rather, like in my case, for a while. I mean, some people after they saw me doing magic wanted to learn some, but for a while I was the only magician in my school. So I was the first best magician compared to like the 100th best basketball player. You know.
Wow. And also, I mean, you were what, born in Connecticut, correct?
Connecticut.
Oh,
Yeah.
so there probably wasn't
So small town Connecticut.
it wasn't like Las Vegas. I mean,
No.
so you had to
No.
envision
Yeah.
this. You had to see this thing.
Yeah, and I think that I also I think it's maybe the same mentality as wanting to share my stuff with people that I didn't know, because I was curious about, you know, if my friends were just being nice, and I wanted to see how they would feel. With me moving out to LA and moving out, you know, and then coming over to Vegas and like trying to do magic outside of, you know, where I was in Connecticut, I was really curious, like, how do I stack up in a much bigger pond where the amount of magicians is much higher, and now I'm actually, you know, comparing myself to the other, you know, performers, instead of being like the only one. Because in Connecticut, I ended up having actually really consistent work when I was still just out of high school, or when I was in high school. I would do restaurant gigs, and then I would do like 3 restaurants a week, and then from restaurants I would do corporate events, and then I was pretty busy, especially during like the holiday season with all these different corporate holiday parties. There's a lot of insurance companies in Connecticut, and it's not necessarily the magic gig that you'd expect, but I had a blast doing it, and I feel like I grew a lot as a performer from doing that. And so I kind of wanted to test myself. Am I still going to be able to do this professionally when there's a whole lot of other magicians people could choose, instead of in this state where there's not a lot of other magicians that they could choose for entertainment, you know? So it kind of like pushes you, and it's the same thing, like just wanting to share what you do, and, you know, and trying to see how people, you know, feel about it.
Right. And you know, you just spoke about comparison. I totally understand what you're saying. You came from Connecticut all the way to LA and Las Vegas, and the competition, I'm sure, is there's a lot of competition. So how do you focus on, you know, you without comparing yourself? You know, you kind of compare yourself, but how do you stay like focused without
Yeah, and that's,
you know?
it's a very interesting balance there. That's a very good question, because it's not about comparing yourself to other people to try and be like them, and it's not about comparing yourself to other people to try and think that you're not good enough or whatever. But I think it's just getting more context for what a high standard of art is, you know? And so if I see, you know, if you can look at somebody else and be like, oh, that's objectively way better than me, you know, then it kind of sets a bar for what you want to strive for and what you want to achieve. But at the same time, when I think of myself in a magician context, it's very similar to what we were talking about when it comes to doing what makes you unique. Because I guess what has kind of gotten my name out there a little bit more when it comes to the magic community is the fact that I do a lot of really unique sleight of hand that's kind of original to myself, and I've released it, especially a lot of like one-handed things, and just like more difficult sleight of hand. And there are a lot of moves that I haven't learned that some people would consider like fundamental sleight of hand, but I was never really interested in that, because I was more interested in what could I do that's different from other people. And then by working on the stuff that I felt that made me unique, that's been able to, I guess, like, instead of trying to climb the hierarchy of magicians by just like looking to the biggest magicians and saying, oh, I want to replicate that and try and be better than them at what they do, I was like, I just want to be the best that I can be at what I do. also understanding what, you know, having context for what good art is by watching other performers, and especially even just outside of magic, just watching all different types of artists, you know, and trying to get context for what is good art, and then, you know, trying to make what I do that is unique up to that standard or above it, you know. And it's constantly a journey, but you're right that it's an interesting balance, because you don't want to think of it as a competition. I'm not competing with any other magicians, but I also wanted to see how I stacked up. So it's like a weird balance. I don't know if I'm articulating that right.
No, no, definitely. You took the gift that you had, you went out, you showed it, and then you went out basically in faith, and now you're you know, you're learning from others, but you're not comparing. And something else that I really admired about you is that you took your magic, but you're an entrepreneur as well, because you are a consultant. So it's like what you're saying, you're living. So you tell me about the entrepreneur side of, with the tutorials and the selling these different things to magicians, and how that started.
Yeah, well, I think that that was something that I always had as a goal in my mind, because I feel that right now, you know, social media is the way that you're able to reach one of the the largest audience, you know, instead of just however many, you know, 100, 200 people, 300 people, 500 people in a room can see the magic at a time. You know, with social media, you can post something and then have hundreds of thousands of people see it. So I always wanted to do magic that would work for that kind of platform and try to reach lots of people. I felt like first my priority was trying to make sure that my trying to reach a lot of people. So I really wanted to kind of focus on my sleight of hand and my technique and the things that magicians appreciate that people in the audience don't really know is going on. And then I wanted to release that to the magic community, so people would know, you know, like that I had actually put the work in and was trying to contribute to the craft and was trying to contribute to the art form as a whole and give away my ideas. That way people would understand that I really cared about the art form, and I wasn't just trying to like do it for attention or fame or whatever. Right. And now I feel more comfortable trying to, you know, do more silly social media videos or whatever, you know, yeah. That you know, that I'm having a lot of fun with.
Or you have an entrepreneurial spirit, and you have this humility with you as well, because you are a consultant for Shin Lim. So tell me about how that, for those of you that don't know, he is was a 2-time winner for America's
Got Talent. Yeah.
America's Got Talent. So that's a big deal. Yeah. But, you know, you are his consultant. So tell me how that got started.
Yeah, so that got started because so after I started doing magic full time when I was over in Connecticut. Then I moved over to Los Angeles. But I actually met Shin for the first time at a convention that he was lecturing at. That was in my hometown. It's called NEMCon, the New England Magicians Conference. And so they booked him to lecture a few years ago. I think it was 2016. So I met him. And we hung out for a couple of days that year and just became like Facebook friends, but we didn't really like talk much after that. And then a couple years later, I'm in LA now, and he was in the middle of America's Got Talent, and we both went to this magic jam. And that's something that's pretty cool about the magic community that's in places like LA. LA is probably one of the best ones in America when it comes to the magic community, because there's so many magic jams where magicians just get together and hang out, just like musicians would get together and jam. But instead of it just being a few people, you'll have tons of people. You'll have maybe like 40, 50 people that all just get together and they're sharing ideas. And so he was in the middle of America's Got Talent. I think he was in the quarterfinals when he just went to this magic jam one night in Orange County. And so we all just hung out and kind of re-met. And then I asked him if there was anything that he wanted help with, you know, on, you know, when he was working on stuff. And he was like, well, there's one thing that I'm thinking about for the final act, and it would be great if you could help like during rehearsal with operating it, you know. And so then we you know, hung out for the rehearsal, and I just kind of had a few ideas based off of seeing what the act was, you know, and what the state of the act was the first day. So I kind of went home, and instead of that day kind of overstepping and trying to share all my ideas at that point, I went home and just wrote down as many of as my ideas as I thought that of things that could maybe be tweaked or like flow differently or whatever, or a different idea for a transition or something. And then I kind of tried to condense it down to like one suggestion or two suggestions. And so then the next day when we were in the middle of the rehearsal, when there was some downtime, then I mentioned those to him, and he really liked that idea. And so then it kind of went for, you know, to him wanting, you know, to hear a little bit more of like some of the ideas or suggestions I had. And then there was one day, and I think it was just a few days before the finals were supposed to air, and he was doing the final act, where they told him, oh, you know, we said that you had clearance for the song, but we actually weren't able to get clearance for that track that you used. And with him, it's very different from most magicians, where they would have an act and then they just choose background music. With him, he thinks of it like a film soundtrack, where the music is really important, it's really iconic, and the moves are choreographed to it. So there's a bit of knowing what the routine is supposed to be in essence, and then really creating the routine around the piece of music once he finds it, instead of the other way around, where he would have a piece and then just add background music. So them saying, oh, your music clearance, we don't have it, that was really, you know, a crazy moment, because then we had to like re-choreograph the act. And they also told him that day when we were in front of all the producers, oh, we feel like you're going too far away from your sleight of hand artist kind of branding, you know, because he was trying to go bigger and make it a much more stand-up like manipulation act, you know, so doing a more of like stage manipulation. And because Simon had told him, you should go bigger, you know, don't just do the close-up table. And then they said, hey, could you go back to the close-up table? We feel like you're going too far away from the sleight of hand artist thing. So then that night we just stayed up until, you know, 5 a.m. It was me, Shin, and his wife Casey, and we were just trying to make this new this whole new act, re-choreographed to a new song. And then the next day found out that that song wasn't cleared. So then, and it was like an hour before we were supposed to show it to all of the producers and directors, because now the finals are approaching really fast. So, you know, made a bunch of changes. And so I think that we got really close really fast during that time, just because it was so high stress and high stakes, and it was just, you know, right before the finals. But then, you know, we were collaborating on that, and I was just trying to help with whatever I could, you know, whether that was, you know, working with him during rehearsals or trying to, you know, whatever, you know, whatever we needed.
Yeah. So have you always been just a great problem solver? Is that always just that's just?
I would like to, I would like to, you know, give, I guess, some more humble answer to say no, but I would say yes, just because ever since I was in 4th grade, there was this program called Future Problem Solvers that I was a part of. And it was the most incredible thing probably to my development as a student and as a person. This program, which I feel like everybody can be a part of. It's amazing. They give you scenarios that take place, say 30, 40 years in the future. And you read these scenarios, and it's coming from the perspective of some kind of official or somebody that's in the government or whatever, or somebody that's running a company, and they need your help, and they're writing it to you, asking for help. And so they give you this scenario of some kind of situation happening in the future, and you're supposed to try and come up with you're supposed to, basically there's a 6-step process that they give you, and you're supposed to fill out this kind of packet and do all of the steps. And so I would go to like state competitions and do it, and then they have the international championships and stuff. But what it does is it basically makes you list all of the problems you can think of in that scenario that are happening in, say, 2041 or 2061. And then you're supposed to find one main underlying problem, like this is the main one we need to solve. And then step 3, you list all of your solutions, and you come up with like 26 of them. And then step 4, you come up with criteria to grade your solutions by. And then step 5, you actually have a scoring system so that you can like do the math, and based off of your criteria, give points to all of your solutions until you find the best solution objectively. And then you write out step 6 is writing out this whole solution for that scenario. So it would be like, what does doping and cybernetics the Olympics look like in 2061 when they have advanced technology and stuff. And this is like fourth graders that are having to solve these problems. So,
wow.
so I loved that program so much. And I feel like it really shaped how I thought with trying to approach problems. And that's how I approach magic now. And I feel like a lot of people all have different processes with how to come up with magic. Maybe they'll read a magic book, find a really cool method, and then try to use that method to make something that hasn't been done before. With me, I do it just like how I did Future Problem Solvers when I was in fourth grade. I start thinking of problems that need to be solved. And by problems, I'm thinking of like impossible things that don't really have a solution. Like, it would be so crazy if. And my it would be so crazy if is my problem. And so once I found my like step two, my underlying problem of what would be the craziest one, that if I saw it right now, it would freak me out, it would fool me, it would be so entertaining, it would be beautiful, whatever, then that's my like goal and my destination. So I start with the problem that I have no idea how to solve. And then I start throwing out solutions, and then I start trying to grade what would be the best solution for that. I don't obviously like write it out in all these steps. I just that's just like how I've trained my brain to think from being in this program as a kid. And then, then you try and come up with the best solution for it. And sometimes it takes, a couple hours, sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes 2 years before I'm ready to share that new effect, that new routine with people. But I approach with the same thing with consulting. And so it's really fun with me because I feel like I grow a lot as a performer and a creator, consulting with people, especially with Shin, because he's just brilliant. But anytime that I work with him, I'm trying to think more in his style and in his voice. So I never have this feeling of like, oh no, I want to keep that for me, or I feel like I can't throw out these ideas, because I'm thinking of like, what would, he has different criteria. He has different contexts for what is a great Shin Lim routine than I do for what is a great Blaise routine, just because of how we perform, our different talking styles, whatever, and a lot of his stuff is going to be much more visual and eye-catching. And for a while, I was trying to make my stuff as not visual as possible. I was trying to make it all in the audience member's hands, as hands-off, which is just a totally different style. So I enjoy the consulting because I feel like I'm doing that same process, and I'm constantly like, Boo Boo is a good friend of ours. He always talks about training your creative muscle, and so it is really like a muscle. The more that you use it and the more that you flex it and the more that you try to solve these impossible problems, you try to come up with an idea and stick to it and commit to that idea and try and find methods, and maybe some will fail, and you keep going until you get to that destination. That is like the way that I feel like I grow as a creator, is by constantly trying to create. And by working in his voice, sometimes I'll approach solving a problem in a way that I never would have thought of, and it helps me come up with a totally different solution for an effect that I'm working on. So I love working with him, and we're actually quarantined in the same house right now because so we're working on a lot of cool magic, and so it's a lot of fun consulting, because then I feel like I learn and grow so much.
Right. I love how you position yourself as you think limitless. Like there's nothing that could, you're like, I'm constantly thinking, how can I solve this? How can I think the impossible? I think that's so inspirational. Also, right now we're living in quarantine. Everything is closed. What have you been able to reflect on your life? What have you learned about yourself that you think will help you when this is over?
Wow. Well, a lot. I think that especially with what we were talking about before, about sticking to ideas and executing, and that an idea isn't really worth that much. That's something that I've been really learning a lot recently, and especially during this quarantine. And it's almost like I'm giving the advice as I'm living it, because I was, ever since I was in high school, I've wanted to combine all of the different interests that I've had and tried to do something that wouldn't necessarily fall just under the magic category and wouldn't fall just under the music category. I've wanted to do these magic music videos, that are like short films and have a narrative. And so it's like interpreting a song into a story, and then from that story, finding magic moments that visually portray it. And then I'm singing and playing guitar and acting out that short film, and I wanted to combine all of those different interests into one. And I've written these scripts for magic music videos ever since that I was in high school, and I've kept writing them, and I've made only one of them. And that was one that I made after I had written all those scripts, because I was like, and it was last Christmas, I did a Christmas music video, because I was like, I just want to make one that I can do by myself, that I can do quickly with just a friend and the camera, instead of writing it as if I had this crazy budget that I don't have. because I wanted them to be so perfect. And I think it's maybe like a perfectionist kind of thing where you kind of paralyze yourself because you're worried about doing something not fully to the vision that you originally had. And so I would write these scripts out as if I had like 50 actors and I had this whole set, and it was like, oh, one day I'm going to pitch this script to a producer and try and get the funding. And I've pitched them multiple times and they still haven't happened yet. You know, I've really tried. So then working with Shin has actually like been one thing where I've learned so much about, like, you need to just do what you can right now instead of worrying about trying to make the idea the full-fledged thing, because you can always do that later, but you have to build up to it, you know? And with him, he will make his ideas happen immediately. And instead of spending the time even going to a script and writing it out, he'll just immediately go to building it. And he is able to immediately make these ideas and build them so quickly. And now he actually has it done and he can move on to the next thing by executing on it. And maybe that means just making it out of playing cards instead of needing it to be some perfect idea. You know, you make it out of cards because that's what you have with you. And so I've been learning a lot, especially during this quarantine, because I started feeling like the days were just passing. And I was like, when am I going to ever be able to perform again? You know, I've spent so much time trying to just be an artist and focus on live shows. And now I don't know when people are going to feel comfortable being an audience again until we have a vaccine. So now the focus has shifted to more, I need to do social media and try and build my audience. That way, by the time I do have shows again, I can sell tickets easier, because that's always the hardest part of doing shows, because I've self-produced 4 shows now. And man, the hardest part is always just getting people in the seats and trying to build up a show in Hollywood with, you know, I was just constantly posting to my same few people to try and get them to come to the show. So now with focusing on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and everything, I'm trying to get a lot better at going from idea to execution as fast as possible, you know? And sometimes that means skipping the scripting step and just going immediately to shooting, because then you can, in the edit, you know, add more stuff and you can fix it. And you can, you know, it's more about making something every day and constantly having these short-term goals instead of what I've always done, which was, I think ever since I was little, I knew what I always was like, I want to do this when I grow up, you know, and it's always changed, you know, like first it was like, oh, I loved mythology when I was really like in 4th grade or whatever. And I was like, oh, I want to be a PhD and like start lecturing about like, you know, mythology and stuff. And then it turned into computer science and thinking that I wanted to do that. And there have been a ton of twists and turns, but always I've been looking way in the future. And with these scripts and the things that I've wanted to make, sometimes I've stopped myself by trying to write it in its fully fledged form, something that I knew I didn't have the resources to be able to make, and knowing that it was going to be way down the line before I could do it. Whereas now I'm working on a couple magic music videos that I can do while I'm here in my home, you know, and it's just me by myself. And I'm really excited about just making them and then moving on to the next thing, you know, and just trying stuff. And I think that this is really a time for people to try things, experiment, use this time to learn, because that's the way that you grow and you emerge from this so much better, because you finally had the time to do all the things that you wanted to do, you know, and it doesn't cost anything to like start learning like music theory, you know, or to start trying to pick up an instrument, or trying to focus on your singing or practice that, or trying, if you're interested in being a comedian, trying to just put funny videos out there. It's free, you know? So it's more about just like trying to set daily goals that are short term, instead of trying to have these long goals that maybe one day I'll be able to do. And I still really want to make those fully formed, you know, magic music videos one day. But if I keep just sticking to that big idea, then I'm wasting a lot of time along the way that I could be using to actually do stuff and get stuff done.
Right. And I love what you said. We should create small goals. You know, sometimes, you know, what I've created in my time was like, you know, even the small things, is making my bed, doing an early morning workout, and then thinking of other ways, you know, I can conduct interviews and getting better. But you're right. If we start out with small goals that we can do, we're going to be more, you know, maybe inspired to do these bigger goals as well. So yeah, I love how you said that. Also, I wanted to, I see you as somebody that's, you live in the present, but you also have this Elon Musk future mind, you know, for the future. So,
I don't know about Elon Musk, but so, he's a genius.
Yeah. But how, where do you see yourself going, say 20 years, 30 years, you know, in your mind with being a magician? Where do you see yourself? Or where would you like to be?
I guess that I want to I really want to do like what I was saying with combining all of my interests and creating a show that doesn't feel like a magic show, something that doesn't feel like just a musician's show, something that's theatrical and tells a story and is a narrative, and something that even if I didn't have the magic in it would be a really compelling story that people would want to be a part of and would want to go to the show, and then to have the magic be just the thing that brings it over the top to something that's really unique, you know. So I guess like I want to be able to also delve more into the things that I've done in the past. Like I would love to really focus more on music, and that's what I've been doing a lot of while I've been here, is, you know, getting back into playing guitar, because there was a while where I was just focused on music, just focused on magic, you know, and just focused on that, and kind of didn't even bring a guitar with me to LA, you know. So now having two with me over here in Vegas and being able to kind of go back to that skill. I mean, nothing that you do is ever, you know, a waste of time if it's something that you care about and you put your time into and you're really passionate about it. So there was a really long time where I was really passionate about music, and I'm really excited to kind of, you know, delve back into that and keep growing from it. I kind of lost track of what the question you asked was.
Oh, good. You know, where's you? I think you explained it, and I also wanted to add that being a magician is all about connecting with others. Right now, there's a lot of us who feel isolated. You know, there's we're not being able to go out and connect with people. You know, what would you say to those people out there who feel just isolated down, and they, you know, they're not inspired? What would you say to them?
I was feeling that for the first maybe 2 weeks of this, because it was a real change. You know, all of our shows were canceled. We were about to start a Midwest tour for Shin, and then we all had to just fly back to LA because all the tour shows were canceled, you know, just all at once. And so then it was kind of this shock, thinking, you know, I was supposed to be scheduling another one of my own shows in LA, and then that's all shut down. So for a while I was feeling that way of not inspired, and it felt like what is the point of this, you know, like seemed almost contrived, trying to post videos of me doing magic when there are people focusing on their health and serious stuff. And then realizing how this is something that this is just kind of a new way of life right now, and we have to deal with this. So I'm kind of trying to use this time to grow as a person and find that balance. And I'd really recommend that to people, because something that I've had that that I guess has allowed me to accomplish the things that I've set out to do, but has also been destructive to other parts of my life, is being so laser focused on things that, like, I would be so committed to magic and trying to form a show that I would just totally laser focus that for a few months. Like, once I set the date of the show, I would just be 24/7 only focusing on that and trying to, I mean, unless I had to do consulting or any other things, but I would be constantly working. And it kind of, you know, made me sacrifice like my social life, made me sacrifice working out and fitness and living a healthy lifestyle, you know? So I'm using this time to really focus more on balance, you know, trying to have a consistent sleep and wake up schedule, and waking up early, running, working out, and doing the things that I was always neglecting whenever I was focused, you know, whenever I was doing shows, or whenever I was so overwhelmed or felt like I needed to put all of myself into one thing. You know, I think that all of the most successful people, they've been able to figure out a way that they can have that balance, that they can have a life and they can have a relationship or whatever, and they can balance it with their work and everything that they do. So I think that that's what I recommend to people, is like, if you're not feeling inspired about maybe what you do as an artist, or you're not feeling inspired about making content or whatever, just use this time to do the things that you know that you should do to better yourself first, because then you'll put yourself into a much better headspace. You know, I was starting to feel kind of depressed, you know, the first couple weeks of this, not being able to perform and not knowing when I would be able to perform again. I didn't want to make social media videos because I just felt like I was wanting people to pay attention to me instead of the virus, you know. And I was also addicted to those trackers on my phone, watching the numbers go up. And I was just so focused on that. And then I just said, you know, I'm going to stop sleeping in. I'm going to stop, you know, trying to just because it's going to be a while before, you know, things kind of resume to normal. So it's not like, oh, I just had a quick vacation, you know, vacation time's kind of over. Use this time for whatever you need. And if that means you need to use this time to rest, then do that. But then also there's balance. So you're not resting all the time. You know, try and wake up early, try and like, you know, exercise or do the things that like maybe you've been neglecting, read a book, like do all the things that I feel like right now I'm kind of reconnecting with all of the different versions of myself in the past and all the things that I was really interested in. My cousin let me know that Yu-Gi-Oh is on Netflix, and I used to be so into that when I was like 4 or 5, and we were like watching it and have like nostalgia. And that's something that else that I would not do when I was focusing so much on shows, is call my family, call my cousins, call my friends, and reach out to them, and you know, just stay connected, you know, like reach out to people that you care about. And I feel like if you focus on just like the balance of life and being better as a person, I guess, or trying to grow as a person, whether that's learning a new skill or just reaching out to people that you care about and checking in, seeing how they're doing, then it helps so much with putting yourself in the headspace to be inspired. Also, I'd say, you know, instead of watching, like watch really good art. You know, if you watch good art, then you'll be inspired, and it'll make you feel like you can do it too. Because remember, those are just people, you know, they figured it out and they can do it too.
No, definitely. No, reading is something that I love to do. So that's what I've been doing to stay inspired, you know, so you have to, we all have to figure out
what are some of your favorite books?
Man, oh man. Well, I mean, I started out with, you know, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
I think I have that here.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is one of the few books that I brought over to Vegas.
There we go. So when I was about,
great book.
Okay, yeah, 22 years old. That's kind of what I started. And then I got really just into all this, you know, information on how the brain works and your thinking and how your thoughts are things and a manifestation and just all these. So that's kind of I love all of that.
I feel like you're like the living embodiment of this book. You're one of the most like charismatic people that I've ever met. So.
Dude, that's a compliment.
That's a perfect recommendation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I really look up to that, to him and all the other, you know, there's so many others authors out there. But I think that can help people who do feel, oh, I'm having trouble connecting with people. And so, I mean, you know, skateboarding helped me connect. Magic helped you connect. I hope people who are watching figure out what their gifts are so they can use that to connect with the people in the world and make that difference.
Finding a community, like if you have a specific interest, finding other people that have that specific interest is so important. Like when I was younger, I was definitely a really nerdy kid, especially in middle school. And I was into like speed solving Rubik's Cubes, and I would go to competitions. But I made like a really great community of friends because we had such a specific interest, you know, that you immediately become friends with people with the same hobby. And it's the same thing with music. And then when I think that there was definitely a change when I started doing theater, like plays and stuff in school, because then you're just seeing the same people day in, day out at rehearsals. And it's almost like a summer camp thing where you just immediately become, you know, such close friends really fast. And the same thing with being on film sets and acting and stuff, or any other kind of thing like that. You when you have something that you really care about, that you're passionate about, seek out other people and that are interested in the same thing. And then you'll find a community, and you'll find friends that will automatically be really close to you because you have such a specific interest, you know, and it's really valuable.
Definitely. They always say birds of a feather flock together. My favorite quote is, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. So it's true, you know, finding that community, finding those people who inspire you and push you forward.
And they say that just like what you said, show you your future, like you're the product of the 5 people you surround yourself with, or something.
Right.
Isn't that a quote like that?
That's right.
Yeah. And I feel like if you surround yourself with people that you're inspired by, then you will continue to grow, you know, like it's like, you know, not that you should like cast away friends or whatever, but you know, if you surround yourself with people that you're inspired by, like I'm inspired by, you know, Shin and Casey every day. So, you know, it's like great people to be around. And I feel like I'm learning and growing every day.
Right. Well, you've traveled a lot. You've done so much, you know, from LA to Vegas. You're in Vegas right now, living your dreams. What is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received. Wow. I think that there's a couple. So one of my favorite quotes, and then I learned it in Future Problem Solvers, is a problem well stated is a problem half solved. And basically, like, if there's something that, and this works for both in a positive way or a negative way. So in a positive way, if there is an idea that you have, think of it as a problem that you're trying to solve and you want to make it happen, you know? And if you really define what it is that you're trying to make happen, and you really state it and know exactly fully formed what this idea is, then you're so much closer to making it a reality and actually getting there, you know? And then also in the other sense, if there's a problem in your life that you've been trying to avoid confronting, but you feel it there and you know that it's something that maybe either you're doing wrong or something that somebody else is wrong in you, and you need to express it, then like, if you really define it and you confront it and you think about it, you're halfway there to getting to a solution. You know, it's like you think about the problems that need to be solved, whether that's a problem in your own life or a problem that doesn't exist yet that you want to make a reality. And then I guess the other one was, my dad always told me that you should be the same person whether you're being seen through a camera lens or a contact lens. And I like that quote a lot. That was a really wise quote from my dad. I mean, not that you shouldn't try to paint yourself in a way that's like disingenuous, and you shouldn't try to be something that you're not. It's by doubling down on what makes you unique, and by doubling down on you that you end up being able to achieve anything, and also just especially in this kind of era where everybody paints themselves in a way that might be kind of fake, like the Instagram filtered reality. By thinking of that quote, I think my dad was really wise when he said it, trying to be the same person, whether you're seen through a camera lens or a contact lens, and hopefully I'm the same person that people see online as I am in person. I'm just a guy that's really passionate about what I love and making art and making cool stuff. And also I try to be a good, genuine person, and that's what's so important, is you don't want to paint yourself in some really positive light. And I've worked with some people before where they have a lot of fans or they're idolized, and they paint themselves in this really positive light, and they seem genuine. They come off as genuine, through a camera, but then you work with them in person and they're like not paying people that work with them, or screwing people over, or not really caring about them, or being rude with people that they work with. It's like, you want to be a good, genuine person. And I think Shin is a perfect example of that, because he's not any different at all as he was before America's Got Talent, and he is still a really kind, genuine, caring person to everybody that I've seen around him. So like, he's a great model for that.
Well, we've been talking all this time about how you started, and I think people are definitely inspired by your story. But right now, I want to know, do you have some cards? You got some cards around you?
I do have cards. Yeah.
This would be the perfect time to show us what you got. Can you fool us? Because I know a lot of people out there like, I don't know if he that good. So
all right. Okay.
So let's see what you got.
Okay. So first off, I'll do something that's a little bit more just visual here for the camera. So here I've got the 4 queens, right? So here. Right. So what we're gonna do here, got 1 queen and 3, or we could have 2 and 2, kind of jumps like that. So this is gonna be about the cards kind of jumping around, right? So you can see it, 2, 2, or 3 and 1. Let's reverse. Okay, back in 2 and 2. Okay. We got 3 and 1, right? Or if we want this last one to jump, it would be like 4 and 0, right?
Woo!
That's what it looks like there.
Wow.
Now let's do something that's a little bit more like interactive. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's do something a little bit more interactive here. So first off, I've got this card here. This one's really important. This is going to be like a wild card. Okay, so it's a joker. So I'm going to give these a mix, and I want you to just start getting a card in mind. Okay, so just start getting in mind a color, red, black, and start thinking, red, black, odd, even. Do you have a card in mind?
Yes.
Okay, so here we have our joker, and I want you to imagine that whatever card you're thinking of is right here on the face of this joker. Okay. So what card are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of the ace. The A.
The ace. Now there's clubs, hearts, spades, or diamonds. Which one would you like?
We'll do the hearts.
The ace of hearts. Yeah. All right. So the joker right here and the ace of hearts. Okay. Now Watch. All I'm going to do with one finger, I'm just going to touch the Joker.
Okay.
You said the Ace of Hearts?
That's what I said. Stop. Ah, you see what I'm saying? You see? Now look, everybody who's watching, y'all need to go check Blaise Serra out. I'm telling you, he be fooling me. Oh man, well, round of applause. You did it again. This is Blaise Serra, magician, entrepreneur. Follow him, blaiseserra.com. Check out his Instagram. He's doing so well, and I'm proud of you. And I know, man, you're gonna be could be a year to 5 years down the road, you're gonna be performing live in Vegas. Watch, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna speak it right now.
However long it takes. I'm that's the other thing is like when we were talking about small goals and living more in the moment, instead of setting these crazy high things, accomplishments have nothing to do with happiness. It's about the journey. Like when I set out and I was like, oh, I want to do my own solo show in Hollywood, and then I finally did it. Wow. The day after it happened, I was like, I'm still the same guy. So it's kind of like, I'd recommend to people out there, envision the person that you want to be, that you see yourself being, and then think, what would that person do, that guy do, or that girl do right now? What would he do if he was in my situation? So don't think the person that I want to be is the guy that has the money or has the, or has the Ferrari or has, whatever accomplishment, because that has nothing to do with happiness. What would that best version of you do if he was in your situation right now? And so I'm trying to learn to really enjoy just the day by day. And actually, I feel like I'm growing and learning a lot because of this quarantine and not having to focus just on, shows and those kind of things. Like the little things are really important.
Right. That was powerful.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. So, man, that's a wrap. Follow him. Make sure you can check out his website. He ain't just a magician. He's a motivational speaker, y'all.
I'm learning from you.